Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be
Yeah,
here.
I was so happy when I was introduced to you because right when I was introduced to you, you immediately started connecting me with great people. And I thought, geez, why didn't someone introduce me to you a long time ago? It would have been nice.
The feeling is mutual, Scott.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So before we go into some of the real estate hell, because I know you're a busy, busy lady, can you tell us a little bit about what you do with, with your practice and litigation, what your sweet spot is, that kind of thing?
Sure, yeah. I'm an employment defense attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say I represent the good guys, the employers, the ones
Uh-huh.
that keep us occupied. So I do class action and paga cases. I represent employers in wage and hour issues, as well as individual cases, the good old fashioned, sexual harassment,
Mm-hmm.
discrimination, wrongful termination cases. But I think I enjoy most about employment law is giving advice and counseling to my clients to hopefully avoid litigation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing a lot of webinars, informative information about wage and hour stuff in California, and
Mm-hmm.
it's to me it's personal because I'm an immigrant. A lot of my family and friends are all immigrants. They come to this country, they build beautiful successful businesses, and it just takes one class action, one paga, and it's poof. And
Right.
it's so my goal is to educate everybody about the California laws, the local ordinances, federal laws, to really do things properly so that they don't have to necessarily hire me to defend them in a very expensive suit. So
It
yeah.
seems that most of the litigators I talk to, they say their biggest their job really is to talk people out of litigation and to somehow figure it out, kind of, because everything I hear about when you litigate is all the stress, all the cost, and maybe and oftentimes the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. And so,
Well, with the difference in employment law versus any other case is
hmm
employment litigation, especially when it's wage and hour, like the class and paga cases, there's
hmm
personal liability. So it is scary. There is no insurance. So, and whatever the company, if the company can't pay for it, then they go after the owner's personal assets.
oh wow,
So it is scary. And I get a lot of these phone calls that people say, I haven't slept in 4 days since I've been served with a complaint, or I'm losing hair, Luiza, help me,
hmm
from the anxiety. But it's a stressful process. So I kind of walk them, through the process of what to expect. And the goal is to be economically feasible, just go in and out as quickly as possible. If I
hmm
can avoid litigation and quickly resolve it, that's my goal, is to get them in and out so they can move on and hopefully continue growing their business and perhaps with better policies in place.
hmm
So, but yeah, litigation is definitely, it's extremely stressful.
Yeah, I recently asked, I had been asked a few times to be an expert witness, and I finally said yes. And man, about halfway through it, I'm going like, what was I thinking? You litigators make me so nervous.
Yeah.
It's just nuts to me. How often do you think you end up going to court, and how often do you settle? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, we actually we're in court a lot, but we end up a lot of times, especially with class action with wage and hour, we do
Mhm.
settle. I would say more than 95% we settle through mediation
Oh,
because
great.
the cost of defense is so high
hmm
to litigate. Sometimes I think we've had a case, the last one we litigated, it cost over $2 million to litigate it. So even though it was successful, at the end of the day, not too many people can afford to spend that kind of money on
hmm
fighting the case all the way to trial. So that's why I like to always look at, first of all, what does the client want ultimately, right? Is your
Right.
goal to be in and out as cheaply as possible, which is oftentimes the answer that I get when I ask the question. And sometimes when you're big enough of a client where you know you're going to be target to these lawsuits and you have good policies and you have good payroll and time cards, then you might want to fight it because you want to set a precedence. I'm doing everything right. Don't think you're going to come after me because my
Right.
books are good. And when they're not, every 4 years there's a knock on a door because class action cases go back 4 years. So
Uh-huh.
once, even if you settle, in the future, they can still come after you, right? Because every 4 years they can file a suit, and then every year is a paga. So that's why it's really important to have good policies and practice in place, because it's not like one and done. You're over and you don't have to worry about it ever again.
Right,
So it's,
right.
it's different in individual cases as opposed to class action cases.
And what do you usually take on? Bigger ones, smaller ones? Is there a different size of case that might be your sweet spot, or?
For me in general, like I have class action cases as small as like I have some employers that have 35 class members. I have some that are over multiple thousands of employees. So
Mhm.
it varies. I don't have clients that are as big as, Google and Netflix of that magnitude, but I would say to, yeah, small to mid-size companies on average, because in California there's no limit as to how many employees you need to be sued for class action. There is something called numerosity, just means that if you have enough employees where each one can't file a separate lawsuit,
Mhm.
right, then that's when you can form a class. So that's why right now, really, if you're an employer with 10 or more employees, you're potential class action victim, and that's what I call them, victims.
Wow, wow. Well, it sounds like there's a lot more conversation to be had there. However, this is called real estate hell, not
Yeah.
class action. So,
Exactly. Very different.
yes, very, very
Yeah.
different. But no, it's good to get to know you and get a little bit more there, and definitely want to connect with you more. But why don't we start off with do you have a real estate hell, some type of challenge story that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I think that's the, when you and I met originally, that was the first story that popped in my head, because it was, let's see, so this goes back 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think, no, maybe more, 22 years, because I was finishing up, I was studying for the bar exam. And as we were getting to, we opened escrow to buy this house, my husband and I. And
Uh-huh.
there was a beautiful house in Studio City, perched on a hilltop, and we were very excited. So the owner had a tenant who did not want to leave the premises. So originally they told us the escrow will be anywhere between 30 to 45 days. It took almost a year by the
Oh,
time we closed escrow. And what made it so horrific was because we gave notice to our landlord that we were leasing an apartment. So we were ready to move out. And then they said, oh, we're going to have to extend it because the tenant doesn't want to leave. And then the tenant flooded the house intentionally because he did not want the house to be sold.
mm-hmm.
So then they had to hire, companies to fix the plumbing and the floors. Then he took every mirror inside the house and broke and shattered in every single room inside the
Mm-hmm.
house. And then at some point, the owner had to file a lawsuit against the tenant, go to court. Then my husband and I got subpoenaed to go testify in court
Uh-huh.
for their dispute, because the tenant said, I spent, I think at the time he said something around like $25,000. He put brand new marble floors
Mm-hmm.
in the dining and the living room area, and he added these, very dramatic columns, etc. And he said that was money I spent because I relied on the landlord. When the landlord said, hey, if you fix the house, I'll sell it to you. Of course, the landlord said, no, 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 I never said that to you.
Uh-huh.
That was a decision you made on your own volition.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to court. I believe they took depositions. They did not take our depositions, but they subpoenaed us to testify at trial as to what was communicated to us by the landlord.
Sure.
But thankfully, they were able to, I think it was like 2 or 3 days before trial, they were able to resolve it. So then we finally went in there and then, closed escrow. But it was emotionally draining. I told my husband, how many times I can't tell you, I want out. I want out. I can't deal with this. This is too. I said, even, and I'm generally I'm not. I I was frustrated, so I said, please, I can't do this anymore. He said, no, 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 this house was meant for us. It's got the
Uh-huh.
perfect views. And at that point, the prices had gone up substantially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of getting trapped into the market. We're like, no, 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 we want to buy this house. And then the owner of the house didn't want to sell it to us at that point because the price had basically gone up so much that he was trying to find a way to kick us out of the escrow.
Boy, that is
It
a
was,
nightmare.
yeah, it really was a nightmare. But I think it helped that we were both, well, my husband was an attorney at the time. I wasn't quite yet, but that kind of really pushed that to say, no, we're closing. We stuck around. Oh, we moved 5 times, by the way, during this process. We moved
Hmm.
5 times because we didn't have a home. We were like homeless, basically.
Boy,
It was pretty bad.
that sounds terrible. So did you, was there anything, any compensation, additional compensation you received because of what they put you through?
I don't think we received I think the only thing we got compensated was for temporarily. They put us in these furnished apartments by Forest Lawn. I think you know maybe the area in Studio City. I forget what it's
Like
called.
you or something like that, or?
Yeah, so we stayed there for like I think 2 months. So they paid for that 2 months, and then they were like, okay, well, there's no more. So then we moved with my mom and dad, which was interesting.
That's the story for another time, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that was yeah, and it got more convoluted. It was then my brother-in-law moved in from New York, and he came in with my mom and dad, and it was just like, when is this escrow gonna close?
And now, how long you been there now?
So we lived there for 10 years, and then
Hmm.
after we had our second child, as much as I love that house and I love the views. It had a lot of staircases, so
Hmm.
it was not very child friendly house. So
I
because we
get
had
it.
to like go up 30 steps just to get the first level of the house, from the garage up.
Hmm.
So we sold that house and then we moved to Encino.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
you started off with a real nightmare.
Yeah.
My wife and I, the first house we ever bought was, we went through something not that bad, but where we got into escrow and we go there, we show up for an inspection and there's another inspection going on. And we're going, what is going on? And they went into escrow with someone else because they realized that we were getting too good of a deal. And I said, you can't do that. So I was a new agent. So I went to my boss and I said, let's talk this out. And we got on the phone and he set everything straight. And I said, look, this is our house. Well, we're not going to give you any credit. We're not going to ask for any credit. And so we just said that we're going to perform. And if you don't, and you can't close. And so with someone else anyway. So, but anyway, yeah, yours sounds so much worse.
I think after that we said we never want to move ever again. So we did stick around for 10 years, and then yeah, after that when we got the house in Encino, I'm looking at my view, which is kind of like facing towards my house.
Uh-huh.
But when we bought that house, it was a very simple, they did the inspection, there were some issues, they gave us some credits, and it was so straightforward and pleasant that we were just,
Mhm.
I mean, like you said, anything after that is just, pleasant.
Right, right. It's
Yeah,
all perspective.
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't. If you started with that, I don't know how is anything going to be interesting after this. So we just
After this, right?
let's
No,
shut down right now.
yeah, I know.
All right. Do you have another one you'd like to share?
I think the very first apartment, so it wasn't so much us, we were trying to, so when I got married, I moved in with my husband at his apartment. So then we
Hmm.
said it was really tiny and it was like a, a guy's pad. So we
Hey, but
needed a little bit.
you're in love. What the heck?
Yeah, sure. I need space for my clothes
Fair enough. Fair enough.
and my books, right?
Mhm.
So I got married, and a week later I started law school. And we were trying to find space, so we said, okay, let's move to Larchmont Village, Hancock Park area.
Mhm.
So we were trying to lease an apartment, and it wasn't as bad as the first story I told you about, but it was still difficult because they were like, well, we can't really. So they showed us an apartment. They first said, okay, well, this looks like it's an available option for you. Let us know. So by the time we let them know, they said, oh yeah, that's no longer available.
Mhm.
So we kind of went through that like 3 times, going back and forth, and
Uh-huh.
then we had to say, okay, we already gave notice on our apartment that we're going to move out within 30 days. So we really had to put the pressure on them, saying we can only extend it for 30 days. After that, we
Hmm.
needed an apartment. So we ended up, so we were supposed to get a 2-bedroom apartment, but we just settled for a 1-bedroom. We said that's fine, as long as we can move in right away, we'll take it. So I guess that was sort of like, at that time, it was very difficult because I was in the middle of my first semester of law school, and it's a stressful process to go through law school, especially first semester. And then
Uh-huh.
right around that time 9/11 occurred, right? So I started in August, September. My husband's from New York. He had just moved from New York, so he was stressing about his family, and we didn't have an apartment to move into. So it was just like a combination of everything. Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge, to say the least.
Well, thank goodness everything worked out when you moved to Encino. See, Encino, that's where the magic is. Now,
Yeah,
do you work in Encino as well? So you were looking,
I
you
do.
said,
I do. Yeah, I'm very fortunate because for a long time, for 10 years, I worked in downtown. So I
hmm.
used to have a really long drive, but now I work and I live in Encino. And, it's funny, we moved to Encino because it was more quiet than
Uh-huh.
Studio City. And I don't think I can say that anymore. I think
Uh-huh.
Encino so we've been here for like 12 years. It's just jam packed, really jam packed. So, but there's a lot of, there are businesses here as well as residences.
Hmm.
So, and we get, I guess, a lot of celebrities now also who want to hide away that are
Hmm.
here. So it's not so quiet anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because it used to be that the entertainment clientele wasn't coming over when I first started in the business, but over the past 10 years, it's become a big, big, big change. It's like instead of going past us to Calabasas or Westlake, they're going, wait a second, Encino's nice. Wait, what's Tarzana? Slowly. I remember a celebrity came and saw a listing I had in Tarzana once, and he comes and he goes, where the hell are we? So we're we're a stone's throw from Encino. And he says, yeah, but he couldn't stand the thought of not seeing Encino. So this big mansion he didn't take. It was on like, oh my gosh, 2 acres. He didn't take it. That place is probably worth 5 or 6 million, at least now, sold for 2 or 3 back in the day. And he didn't take it because of the name.
Isn't that crazy? But you know better than anyone, right? People will do anything with the right zip code and the right name and the right school district. It's very, very important, especially I feel like with certain clienteles, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what else? Do you have another long nightmare escrow story or two
I,
bedrooms being one?
yeah, I think those are the only nightmare stories. But the way you're saying it's crowded, is the next one gonna be a nightmare, please? We were talking actually about this. My husband and I were walking this weekend, and we were talking like my daughter's getting ready to go to college this year, and our son is 2 years behind. And we were thinking like, should we sell? Should we, where should
Mhm.
we go? And then we remembered the hell story from Studio
Mhm.
City. And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still traumatized from 20 years ago if I'm ready to make the move. But
It's the PTSD from 20 years ago.
exactly. It kind of stuck with us, I think, forever. It will always be. Oh, wait, I do have one more story. Hold on.
Sure.
I just remembered something. This one didn't work out. So we, right after I was pregnant with my first child, we were thinking again, kid-friendly house, and this one was going to be in Sherman Oaks,
Uh-huh.
and we were going to do a lease to buy, right? So
Hmm.
we were going to do 2 years of lease, and then part of that was going to go towards the down payment, and then we were going to buy. So we said, okay, let's rent our house, the one that we went to hell with to
Hmm.
purchase, right?
Uh-huh.
So then we said, okay, let's do lease to buy. So when we decided to do that, I found out that I was pregnant and that I needed to be on bed rest.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, so we need to do this quickly so I can, towards like the last 3 months, I need to be in a situated environment.
Okay.
So we said, okay, so we leased our house to this couple. And then we were going, right that day, we were going to sign the lease for that house, the one we were going to
Hmm.
move to. It was going to be leased to buy. As we're driving, literally on the way, the agent calls and says, I'm sorry, that house is not going to work out because the owner's best friend just separated from his wife, and he
Uh-huh.
needs a place to live. And the owner decided not to offer the house to you. So now I found out I'm on bed rest, pregnant with child number 2. I don't have a home because I just signed a lease for someone to move in.
Wow,
I can't
man.
believe I forgot this story. So then we said, oh my God, we have 20 days to find a place to move into. Oh, by the way, we have a dog, a child, and we need a more like less staircase house, right? So
Uh-huh.
I can be comfortable. And so we moved to Toluca Lake,
Uh-huh.
um, who basically somebody subleased it to us because we couldn't find a place to live. So then from there, which was a temporary thing for a 2 month, then from there, I moved again while I'm on bed rest to another house in Studio City, which was supposed to be flat. So then after that, the owner of that house decided not to pay the bank. So even though I was paying $6,100 a month for lease, the owner took the money, never paid the bank. The house went foreclosure. Then we had to basically move back into our house. So we wrote a letter to our tenant saying, please, we are done with this. We want to move back into our house. I'll take the stairs. I don't care anymore.
Right.
And I can't believe that escaped my head, but I guess I was pregnant most of the time, so maybe my memory wasn't quite as, yeah, so we went through that too.
Oh my gosh. So what happens when you go back and say, "Hey, sorry, I know you just moved in, but we can't let you." I mean, were they actually already moved in?
No, they already moved in. They had, this was like happening, at least it had already occurred, like it was 9 months. So we moved
Hmm.
to this house for 2 months. Then we moved to the other house in Studio City. So we kept paying and paying for, so it was like total of 10 months at
Hmm.
that point. So the lease was coming up, so they had to renew it. And that's when we said, please, pretty please, instead of waiting 2 more months, we can't renew it. We got to move back into the house. Can you
Hmm.
guys leave a little earlier? And they said, yeah, that's fine, because one of them, the business wasn't working out. They were going to go back to New York.
Uh,
So in that way, that fortunately that worked out. But I said to my husband, I said, I am never doing this again.
well, it's interesting because you have the hell stories, but then there's always like the ones that go really nice and smoothly.
Yeah.
But to have that many, especially pregnant, you have a young child, and you have a dog, and you're being kicked out. That's wow. So
You know
this is
what
a
the
depressing conversation for you, isn't it?
yeah. But and this is how I always teach my kids lessons in life. I say, every bad thing that happens to you makes you learn, makes you
Hmm.
grow as a person, become resilient. So that's how I choose to look at these stories. Is I've learned to overcome interesting obstacles.
Hmm.
And no, I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. But if you do, the outcome is that you just get stronger, and small things just don't bother you anymore.
That's a great way of looking at it. I tell my kids too, you got to look for the lesson. And it's like there
Absolutely.
is no lesson. I said actually there is, because life is good. This was really tough, but where's the lesson and grow from it. So sounds very. I like the way you say it better, but I just cut to the chase. See, I don't get paid by
Yeah,
the hour. If I got paid by the hour, I'd
I
do
do
more.
too.
Hey, do you by any chance have a charity or a cause or anything that's close to your heart you want to share?
Sure, yeah. It's actually it's called AGBU, which is it's an Armenian American Armenian nonprofit that helps with various causes, including help individuals when they migrate to America, to help them set up with positions, as well as help children go to school.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic nonprofit organization.
Oh, that sounds great. I like that. So, um, if you have anything else to share, you're welcome to. But I think this was a great conversation. It's really up to you because you
I think
can't you
I'm
can't
good,
bill me.
Scott.
You can't bill me. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work out that way.